The alien ship entered Earth's orbit quietly, hidden behind dark clouds and electronic jammers. Commander Xerion stood inside the command deck, looking down at the planet. His black eyes scanned the green land, mountains, and small villages. "So weak," he said, his voice cold. "No space defense, no warning systems. This will be over in one cycle." His officers nodded silently. They had done this before: invade, conquer, control. Earth was just another name on a long list of broken worlds. Xerion gave the order: send the scout team. Begin with a rural zone. Test the response. A small alien dropship broke through the clouds and landed quietly on the edge of a sleepy countryside town. The wind carried dust as 3 armored aliens stepped out. Their weapons buzzed softly, ready to fire. The town was calm, almost too calm. A few people stood on porches, confused. One old man raised his hand, thinking it was some kind of military exercise. A second later, he was shot and fell to the ground. Screams broke the silence. Children ran. Mothers hid. A few men tried to fight, but were knocked out with alien stun weapons. Within minutes, a group of 10 humans were captured and tied near the center of the town. The aliens stood tall, proud of their work. Commander Xerion watched the footage from his screen. As expected, he smiled. These creatures are soft. But someone else was watching, from the shadows. Behind a half-burned barn, a man stood still, hiding in the dark. His name was John Hale. No one in the town knew much about him. He lived alone, worked as a mechanic, rarely spoke. But now his hands were tight fists, his eyes sharp like broken glass. He had seen this before, in Iraq. Years ago, he had fought in secret missions no one ever spoke about. He had seen villages burned, families torn apart, men like Xerion who thought they were gods. And now it was happening again. Only this time, it wasn't humans. It was something worse. He watched the aliens with calm anger. They moved like machines, sure of their power, just like invaders always did. But they made the same mistake, the same stupid, deadly mistake. They thought fear was control. They thought silence meant surrender. They thought no one would fight back. John looked at the captured people. Some of them were kids he had fixed bikes for. One of them was a woman who once brought him dinner after a storm. He couldn't let this happen. Not again. He quietly walked back to his shed, which was full of tools, wires, batteries, and old army boxes. He opened one metal case and pulled out a dusty bag. Inside was a small black notebook, an old revolver, and a patch with his unit name, Ghost Dogs. He remembered his last mission, how it ended in fire, how he was dishonorably discharged for going too far. Now, going too far was the only option. He checked his revolver, only 4 bullets. Not enough to win, but enough to start. He grabbed wires, nails, batteries, and a gas tank. His hands moved fast. His mind was sharp. He knew how to turn trash into traps, bombs, sensors, fire tricks. The aliens wouldn't know what hit them. Meanwhile, one of the alien scouts picked up a strange signal near the barn. He turned to his partner. Movement, life form, could be hiding humans. "Let's clear it," the other replied. They walked toward the barn slowly, weapons ready. But inside, John had already left. What they didn't know, he had set up a trap. As they stepped into the barn, a small string tightened under the door. A spark snapped, and then, boom. The barn exploded in fire and dust. One alien was thrown 10 feet away, armor cracked. The other screamed in his own language, half burnt and limping. John watched from behind a haystack, eyes cold, heart steady. "That's 2, he whispered. Back on the mothership, Xerion stood up from his chair. The screen showed fire. What was that? "Unknown," said his officer. 2 soldiers down. No military vehicles in sight. No armed resistance on record. Xerion's smile faded. Impossible. It must be an accident. But it wasn't. Down on Earth, John stepped into the shadows again. He moved like a ghost, silent, focused. He knew they would come looking. He wanted them to. Because now, it was personal. He looked up at the night sky, where the mothership floated in silence. "They think I'm just a man," he whispered. He picked up his backpack, strapped the revolver to his side, and disappeared into the trees. Wrong. Night fell over the countryside, but there was no peace. Fires burned in the distance where the aliens had landed. Smoke curled into the sky. The town was silent, except for the quiet crying of families locked in barns and basements. Commander Xerion stood in his ship, eyes locked on the new footage. His soldiers, elite and trained for planetary control, had just been blown apart by something. He was angry, not because two of his warriors were dead, but because it wasn't supposed to happen. This world has no army, he hissed. No organized resistance. His second-in-command replied carefully. Maybe one of them is a soldier, a hidden one. Zirian's black eyes narrowed. Then find him. Now. On the ground, John Hale didn't stop to celebrate. He had only just begun. He moved through the forest near the town fast and quiet. Years of military training came back like second nature. He had already rigged 2 more traps, one using old wires and another with a propane tank from an abandoned trailer. He worked with what he had. This wasn't war. It was guerrilla survival. And he was the king of that kind of war. In the town square, 3 new alien scouts stood around the captured civilians. Their armor was thicker, their weapons more advanced. One of them was scanning the ground for movement. There is someone out there, one alien said, watching us. The lead scout turned his helmet slowly. Then, let's give him a reason to come out. They dragged a teenage boy from the group. His mother screamed and tried to stop them, but they shoved her down. They raised a blade. John saw it all from his scope. He was hidden on a nearby roof, his rifle steady, his heart pounding. He aimed at the alien's hand. Bang. The bullet tore through the alien's fingers. The blade dropped. Screams, confusion, panic. John was already gone. He ran across rooftops, dropped into an alley, and disappeared behind an old bakery. One alien scout shouted into his communicator. He's here. One human. Armed. Zirian heard the report. He clenched his jaw. One man is doing all this, he muttered. No, this is something else. Something trained, dangerous. He gave the order. Send the hunter drones. 2 hours later, the sky buzzed. 4 silver hunter drones flew low over the fields, scanning heat signatures, picking up movement. John was waiting. He had set up a broken-down car on the road with metal reflectors, engine heat, and a human-like dummy inside. The perfect trap. The drones detected it instantly. Target locked. They fired. The car exploded, and the blast triggered a second explosion under the road. Boom! One drone shattered in flames. Another lost control and crashed into a barn. John, hiding in a ditch nearby, smiled. 2 down. But the third drone spotted him. It swooped low, fast, with twin guns spinning. John dove behind a tree as bullets sprayed around him. Bark flew everywhere. He rolled and fired once, twice. Missed. The drone prepared for a kill shot. Then suddenly, it exploded. A boy, the same one saved earlier, stood behind the barn with an old rocket launcher from a forgotten army stash. John turned and looked at him. The boy gave a small nod. You're not the only one fighting, the boy said. John's eyes softened for a second. Just a second. Then he turned back to the battlefield. Zirian was furious now. How can one human, one man, be bringing down trained soldiers and drones? His officer answered quietly, he knows our patterns. He's studied war. He's using old human tech in ways we didn't expect. Zirian slammed his fist on the console. Then we will hunt him like an animal. That night, John returned to his shed. It was dark, quiet. He lit a small lantern and opened a metal box. Inside were old photos, his army team, his wife, his daughter. He looked at them one by one, his fingers shaking slightly. They took everything from me once, he whispered. Now, I'll take everything from them. He checked his revolver. Only 2 bullets left. But that didn't matter. He had other plans now. At sunrise, the aliens marched deeper into the forest, where the signal from John's last attack came from. They were ready. But they didn't see the tripwires. They didn't notice the gas leaking from buried canisters. They didn't hear the silent timer ticking inside a metal box under the dirt. Until it was too late. Boom, boom, boom. Explosions lit up the trees. Fire tore through the alien squad. The earth shook. In the middle of it all, John stood on a hill, watching. This wasn't just defense anymore. This was war. And he was winning. The forest still burned where the alien patrol had walked. Trees were black, ash floated in the air, and twisted metal from alien armor lay on the ground. But there was no body. No sign of the one they were hunting. Only silence. Commander Xirian watched the destruction from the live drone feed. He strikes, then disappears, he said, voice sharp, like a shadow. His officer replied, he moves faster than we can track. He sets traps, not battles. He's a ghost. Xirian's eyes narrowed. Then we hunt him like a ghost. turn off the lights, flush him out. That night, the aliens shut down all town power. Lights died. Generators stopped. Even backup systems were jammed with alien tech. The town went dark. No electricity, no heat. Civilians huddled in fear. Above them, drones circled. Below, soldiers moved in groups, searching every home. They thought darkness would make it harder for John to move. But darkness was his world. John crouched on top of the old church, watching with night vision goggles. He had moved silently through the ruins, leaving no tracks. Below, an alien patrol passed by, scanning the street. He waited. One alien stepped near a trash can. Click. The mine exploded, sending the alien flying. Screams, radio noise. The other aliens ran for cover. John was already gone. He slid down the side of the church, crossed 2 backyards, and vanished into the shadows again. He wasn't just fighting them. He was breaking their minds. One alien captain, taller than the rest, and with deep scars on his face, paused in the street. His name was Zarlik. He looked at the burning trash can, then at the rooftops. He's not fighting to survive, Zarlik said quietly. He's fighting for revenge. The other soldier frowned. He's just a human. Zarlik didn't answer. He only looked toward the forest where the last patrol had died. John reached the edge of town, where a small shelter held several children and old folks. They were cold, hungry, scared. The boy from earlier, the one who helped shoot down the drone, stood at the door. "You came back," the boy whispered. "I said I would," John replied, handing him 2 cans of food and a thermal blanket. "Keep him warm." One little girl, barely 5, ran up to him and hugged his leg. John froze. It had been years since he felt anything like that. He gently placed a hand on her head. Then he turned and left. No time for softness. Not tonight. Flashback. Iraq, 2013. John moved through destroyed buildings with his Black Ops team, Ghost Dogs. They were silent, deadly, feared by both sides. Their mission: take out enemy leaders before they could plan more attacks. One day, he came home from deployment and found his house destroyed. His wife gone. His daughter buried under rubble. The ones responsible were never caught. The army called it a tragic mistake. John never believed that. He left the military. But the war never left him. Back in the present, John entered a destroyed radio station. Inside, he found old wires, antennas, and a power unit. He got to work. He wired a signal booster to hijack the alien frequency. After an hour of silent work, a green light blinked. Connected. He put on a headset. Listening. Alien voices filled his ears. Orders, movement reports, locations. Then something else. A command from Commander Xerian himself. Full invasion in 36 hours. Phase 2 begins. John sat back, his jaw tight. So this was just the beginning. They hadn't sent their full army yet. He had 2 days before the real hell arrived. He looked down at his hands. Scared, steady, angry. The next day, aliens searched every building. They kicked open doors, burned hiding spots, and even shot 2 innocent men in public. Fear spread like poison, but so did hope. Because at night, the ghosts came again. One by one, John picked off alien scouts using ropes, tripwires, and firebombs. He left no trace. Only the fear that he was always watching. The aliens stopped sleeping in shifts. They set traps that were useless. They grew tense, nervous, unsure. Xerian punched the wall of his command room. One man cannot do this much damage. But deep down, he was starting to doubt that. That night, as John prepared his next trap, he looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, the alien mothership floated, watching, planning. He whispered to himself, "They came thinking we were weak." He looked at the small photo of his wife and daughter. They were wrong. John Hale sat inside an abandoned school building. The windows were broken, the walls cracked. Dust covered everything, but the silence helped him think. He was tired. His arms ached. His left shoulder was bleeding. But his mind was sharp. He drew a map on the floor using chalk. The town, the forest, the roads. He marked every patrol route, every drone path, every trap he had set. "I don't have numbers," he whispered, "but I have the map, and I have their fear." High above, on the mothership, Commander Xerian stared at his screen. Every hour, he lost more soldiers, traps, explosions, disappearances. "It's like we're being hunted," one alien officer said. Xerian turned slowly. "He knows our every move. He's listening to us somehow." "Yes, sir. We think he tapped into our comms." Xerian's face darkened. cut all ground communication, sent messages only by hand signals and light codes. Back on Earth, John noticed the change. No more radio chatter, he murmured. Smart, but now they're slower. He opened an old locker and pulled out a rolled blueprint, an old power grid layout of the town. He smiled. It was time to fight smarter. That evening, John climbed onto a rooftop and watched the aliens move with flashlights and hand signals. They looked nervous, no talking, no sound. He waited until they were all inside the middle of the street. Then he flipped a switch. Zap. Power returned for 1 minute. Every light in the block turned on. Street lamps, house lights, a car alarm. The aliens froze in confusion. And then, boom! 4 cars exploded. They were parked earlier, loaded with fuel tanks and wires. The light had only been a distraction. The trap was already set. 5 aliens died instantly. 1 crawled, burned and screaming. John didn't even flinch. In the ship, Xerion watched in horror. How? How did he know our new pattern? Zarlik, the skirt alien captain, stepped forward. It's not luck. It's intelligence. He studies us. Xerion's jaw tightened. Then we stop reacting. We attack. No more patrols. We take the town by force. Burn it all if we must. But the civilians? One officer asked. Xerion growled. If fear won't control them, pain will. The next morning, fires broke out across the town. Alien ships fired small plasma bombs into buildings. 1 store, then another, then a library. Smoke rose. John stood on a rooftop, eyes wide. They were changing the game. No more slow moves. Now they were striking everything. Civilians ran into the woods, screamed, hid underground. The boy who had helped John carried 2 children into an old sewer pipe. John knew this was what Xerion wanted, chaos. Panic. To make John choose between saving people or fighting back. But John had a plan. That night, he returned to the radio station. Though alien comms were cut, he used his booster to send 1 signal up to the mothership. Just 1. A simple line of Morse code. You're being watched. Inside the mothership, lights blinked. The signal came through. It wasn't long, but it was clear. Tyrion's face went pale. He reached us, up here. Zarlik stepped forward again. Commander, I believe he's playing with you now. A mind game. Xerion's claws gripped the table. Then end the game. I want him dead. I want the town turned to dust. But on the ground, it wasn't over. John had slipped inside an alien outpost, alone. Disguised in stolen armor, he moved like one of them. His body ached, but his focus was razor sharp. He planted a bomb near their supply center, right under their food and fuel storage. Before leaving, he scratched a symbol on the wall, an old Ghost Dogs unit mark, so they'd know who did it. Back at his shed, John sat alone again. He looked at the night sky, blood dried on his hands. He took out his notebook and flipped to a page. A quote his daughter once wrote for him. Monsters fall faster when they think they're gods. He closed the notebook. This ends soon. The fire still burned in the east. Alien fuel tanks had exploded with such force that half the sky lit up. Smoke drifted over the town. The aliens were stunned. Supplies gone. Morale broken. And still no sign of the man who did it. John Hale. Commander Xerion stared at the screen in silence. His officers didn't dare speak. One alien whispered, "They say he walks like a shadow." Another said, "He killed our best scouts," with ropes and glass. Xerion slammed his fist on the table. This ends now. He turned to Zarlik. Take your strongest squad. Find him. Burn every house if you must. He cannot survive. Zarlik nodded. His sharp eyes flashed. As you command. John knew they were coming. He watched from the church bell tower, his rifle resting on a broken ledge. His traps had worked for days. His fear tactics had crushed their confidence. But now they were sending everything. No more small squads, no more searching. Now they were hunting him like prey. But John wasn't running. Not anymore. He had spent the last 2 days turning the town into a battlefield. Wires across doors. Knives hidden in floorboards. Gas lines ready to blow. And one final surprise buried in the heart of the street. An old military crate filled with plastic explosives. Everything was ready. Now, all he needed was for them to walk into the trap. Zarlik's squad entered from the north. 8 alien warriors armed with heavy armor, heat sensors, and pulse rifles. They marched fast and hard, kicking down doors, scanning for heat, checking every corner. "Check the tower," Zarlik ordered. One alien climbed toward the church. Step by step, John watched quietly, his hand on a wire. 3, 2, click. The staircase exploded, sending the alien flying through the air like a rag doll. Dust covered the church. Bells rang as debris fell. Zarlik roared, "Spread out. He's near." The others spread through the town. John ran through the back alleys, his heart steady. He dropped smoke bombs behind him, breaking their sensors. They chased shadows. He moved like wind. One alien entered a house. It looked empty. But John was inside the walls. He waited until the alien stepped forward, then drove a steel rod through the wooden panel. Thud. The alien collapsed, twitching. John didn't stop. He moved to the next street. Zarlik watched from a rooftop, breathing hard. 5 of his squad were dead already. "He's not a soldier," he muttered. "He's something else." A whisper came from behind him. "I'm what he made me." Zarlik spun around, too slow. John punched him in the throat, then kicked him off the roof. The alien crashed into a truck, dazed. John dropped down after him, landing with a grunt. Zarlik growled and pulled out a blade. "Fight me properly," he shouted. John said nothing. He pulled a small trigger from his pocket. Beep. The street shook. Underneath, the explosives detonated. A chain of blasts roared through the ground. Zarlik's eyes widened. Boom. The road lifted. The shockwave tore through buildings. Flames burst into the air. Aliens screamed. John flew back and landed hard, his ears ringing. But he got up. He always got up. Back on the mothership, alarms flashed red. Xerion watched in horror as camera feeds went black. "Report," he shouted. An officer stammered, "Commander, we've lost most ground forces." Xerion's claws trembled. One man, John, limped back to his shed. Blood dripped from his leg. Smoke rose behind him. The town was broken, but it wasn't his grave. He looked at the mirror. His face was tired, old, but strong. He poured water on his wound and tied it with cloth. He checked his final weapon, a stolen alien blaster, charged and deadly. They had taken his family, burned his home, tried to break him. But now, they were the ones afraid. Back in the woods, the boy and the other survivors heard the explosions. "Is he still alive?" one girl asked. The boy nodded. "He's not like us. He doesn't die." They waited, hoping, watching the smoke. Night fell. John stood on the highest roof, looking at the mothership above. He raised his hand. And it was the alien signal device, hacked and blinking. He pressed the button. One simple message sent. "Next, I'm coming for you." The sky turned red as dawn broke over the town. Smoke drifted through the empty streets. The ground still shook from last night's explosion. John Hale stood on the roof of a half-destroyed house. His coat was torn. His leg was wrapped in bloodied cloth. His eyes burned with fire. He looked up at the alien mothership, still floating like a god over the earth. "They wanted a war," he muttered. "Let's give them one." In the forest, the boy and other survivors gathered around a small campfire. Children clung to their mothers. Old men held shovels and sticks. They had no weapons, but they had hope. And then they heard footsteps. John appeared from the trees, bruised but alive. The boy smiled wide. "You're back." John looked at the crowd. "There's no more hiding," he said. "They'll destroy this place if we don't stop them now." "Oh, we got nothing," said an old man. "No guns, no bombs." John reached into his bag and pulled out a glowing alien rifle. "You've got me." Back in the mothership, Commander Xerion stared out the window. He had lost most of his ground troops. His captains were dead. His fuel center was gone. One human had done this. But now, something else troubled him. Satellite reports showed humans in nearby towns rising up. Riots, explosions, resistance. It was spreading. "It's no longer about one man," his officer said. "The humans are fighting back." Xerion's face twisted with rage. "They want rebellion? Then we crush them all." John led the survivors back into town, moving through burned streets and empty homes. He knew the layout. He knew every hiding spot. More people joined them as they moved, men with hammers, women with Molotovs, teenagers with stolen alien knives. A town that once hid in fear was now an army. They reached the town square. John climbed onto a broken car and looked over the group. "You've seen what they do," he said. "You've lost your homes, your families. So have I." He pointed toward the sky. "That's not a god up there. That's just another enemy." The people shouted. They were ready. The mothership opened its cargo bays. Alien drop pods rained from the sky, dozens of them, slamming into the earth. Soldiers poured out, bigger, stronger, faster than before. But this time, the humans didn't run. They attacked. The streets turned into fire and chaos. John moved through the battle like a ghost, shooting, ducking, setting traps. An alien swung a blade at him. He blocked with a trash lid and stabbed with a pipe. A teenager beside him threw a flaming bottle. The alien screamed. A group of kids launched fireworks into the sky, homemade missiles, striking alien drones midair. For the first time, aliens were on the back foot. Zarlek, somehow alive but scared and limping, led a squad of elites through the alley. He spotted John and charged. John dropped smoke and disappeared. Zarlek turned, trying to scan. Bang! A shot rang out. Zarlek fell to one knee, green blood spilling. John stepped out from the smoke, rifle aimed. You should have stayed dead. Bang! Zarlek collapsed. Inside the mothership, alarms screamed. Tyrion watched as human mobs overran his soldiers. He smashed his claws into the wall. Prepare the cleansing weapon, he roared. His officer hesitated. But that will burn the town. Civilians, soldiers. I said do it. Tyrion snapped. Burn it all. John received the intercepted signal. A weapon was charging. Something big, something final. You look at the town, still fighting, still surviving. And then he made a decision. He grabbed a small alien jetpack, looted weeks ago, and strapped it on. He checked his rifle, his knife, his will. The boy grabbed his hand. Where are you going? John looked up at the ship. To finish this, John Hale flew into the sky, his alien jetpack roaring beneath him. The town below, once broken and burning, now felt distant, almost like a memory. Above him, the mothership loomed, a colossal shadow. The weapon Tyrion had prepared was charging, glowing with deadly power. John's heart pounded as he soared toward it. Just one shot, he whispered to himself, one shot to end it. Back on the ground, chaos continued. Humans were fighting valiantly, pushing back against the alien forces, but the odds were slipping away. The boy and the survivors fought side by side. They had seen what John could do, and now they knew it was their turn to stand tall. But in the back of their minds, they all knew the truth. The weapon in the mothership could destroy everything in minutes. The battle would be lost unless John stopped it. Inside the mothership, Commander Xerion grinned as he watched the weapon charge. The humans would break. They had no chance against his firepower. But then, a new reading appeared on his console. One human, coming straight at us, his officer said, voice trembling. Xerion's eyes narrowed. That's him, the one who has been ruining everything. He raised his claws, and a sinister laugh escaped his lips. Let's see if he's as brave as he thinks. John felt the tension in the air as he got closer. The mothership's glowing weapon was nearly ready. He could already see the pulse of energy building in its core. This is it, he thought. No more feeder, no more hiding. He aimed for the ship's central command tower. That was the heart of the weapon, the one place he could destroy it. His fingers gripped the trigger. But just as he prepared to fire, a blast of energy shot toward him. The ship's defense system had noticed him. The attack hit him in the chest, sending him spiraling. His body tumbled through the air, but he steadied himself. His jetpack sputtered, but he still had enough fuel to stay in the air. The energy had burned through his coat, his chest blowed, but he wasn't done. Back on the ground, the survivors saw the flashes of light in the sky. They knew what was happening. He's doing it, the boy said, staring up in awe. John Hale was taking the fight to the stars, and they could only watch as the battle above them reached its peak. John gritted his teeth and aimed for the mothership again. He'd been knocked off course, but now he was back on track. His rifle was in his hand, and his target was clear. He pushed his jetpack harder, zooming toward the central core. The ship's cannons fired again, but he dodged them, his body twisting in the air. He was close now. Inside the mothership, Tyrion's voice echoed through the halls. Fire everything. Don't let him reach the core. But it was too late. John dove straight for the command center. The weapon was fully charged. His fingers slammed down on the button to release the missile. Boom. The world shook as the missile hit. Explosions rattled the mothership from within, sparks flying from the command center. John fell back, his body losing control, but he knew the mission was complete. The weapon was gone. The mothership began to shake violently. The walls cracked. The lights flickered. And then, as John tried to steady himself, the core exploded, sending shockwaves through the entire ship. Final scene. John plummeted toward the Earth, smoke trailing behind him. His body was battered and weak, but his mission was done. The ship above him disintegrated, its massive frame breaking apart and burning as it fell to the ground. John's jetpack had failed, but he didn't need it anymore. He fell through the sky, his eyes closed. He was at peace. Below, the people in the town saw the explosion. They cheered, knowing what had just happened. The aliens were gone. The war was over. John Hale's body landed in the field near the woods where the survivors had gathered. The boy ran to him, tears in his eyes. But John was no longer the man who fought. He had become something else. A symbol. The man who saved the world.